Good morning, good morning. Good morning, one and all. Good morning, all the invitees and guests. For today's History Symposium is being organized by the Faculty of Social Sciences, Department of History, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University, on Women in Nation Building, post-independent by Mrs. Geetanjali Mandral, Chairperson, FWO, Telangana and Andhra Sub area. It is my proud privilege to welcome all the guests and invitees for today's program. And also Vadam Srinivas Garu, head of the department. And also I request Professor Ganta Chakrapani Garu, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, is joining through Zoom. And also another guest, Professor Uma Chakravarti Garu, she is also going to join through Zoom from Delhi. She is the former head Department of History, Delhi University. She is a feminist and historian and filmmaker. Welcome you, madam, once again. Now I request Dr. Kanakadurga Garu kindly present a bouquet to our beloved Vice Chancellor, Professor K. Sitaramarav Garu. Thank you very much. Now I request Dr. Pallavi Garu kindly present a bouquet to today's Geetanjali Garu.
Nursery started.
Like that. I go to start.
I request Dr. Arna Garu kindly present a bouquet to our MLC Garu. Surabhi Bani Devi, madam. I request Sarita Garu kindly present a bouquet to our Registrar Dr. A.V.R.N. Reddy Garu.
Thank you.
I request Dr. Chandrakala Garu kindly present a bouquet to our Dr. Vaddanam Srinivas Garu, Head Department of History. Sudharan, sir. I request to again Chandrakala Garu kindly present a bouquet to our Vaddanam Srinivas Garu. Thank you, one and all. I request all the dignitaries on the dais kindly proceed for the lighting of the lamp and offer floral tributes to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar portrait. This symposium is blended mode. People are joining across the country from various universities. And also we recognize in this August gathering, Dr. Shivakami Madam, Professor Ruparani Garu, Dr. Sarla Ma'am, and different faculties, heads of the branches, deans, directors.
Professor Uma Chakravarti.
Yeah, Professor Uma Chakravarti also joined already. Welcome.
Professor Anandi.
Yeah, Professor Anandi.
Online.
Madam also joining through online. Now I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor K. Sitaram Garu kindly conduct the further proceedings. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sabhaku namaskaram. Very good morning to all of you. Really very happy occasion today. Our Department of History and Faculty of Social Sciences is organizing one very important seminar, a symposium today on very relevant topic, that is women in nation building, pre and post. To all of us. So at the outset, I congratulate both the Department of History and also Faculty of Social Sciences for taking all care and the exercise behind this work done by them in organizing this important event today. Respected chief guest of this today's seminar, symposium, Mrs. Srimati Geetanjali Mandral, Chairperson, FWO, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh sub-area, and also respected Srimati Surabhi Vani Devi, MLC of our Telangana legislature, Professor Ganta Chakrapani, who joined in this program online, Dr. A.V.N. Reddy, Registrar, Professor Sudharani, Director Academic, and Director of this
one-day symposium. Professor Vadyanam Srinivas, co-director of this program, keynote addressee of this inaugural session, Professor Uma Chakravarti, famous social scientist, historian, and filmmaker from Department of Delhi University. She also joined in online, and also various important personalities and academicians who are attending this seminar. I welcome them all to this inaugural function of one-day symposium. So, we are celebrating is also celebrating this Saptaham, 2 weeks of the programs. In this context, that is under the title of Swatantra. So, Diamond Jubilee celebrations. And really, very happiest, momentous days we are passing through and recollecting memories of freedom struggle, national movement, and also unsung heroes and heroines of our national movement. As part of that, we are organizing this symposium also. One more important fact I wanted to tell you on this occasion. Our university admissions consisting of more than 50% are women. More than 50. Really, that is very proud and privileged to us to announce this fact. And pass percentage, even in getting gold medals, awards, and the representation of women is very high, more than boys. In the same manner, woman is addressed as the half of the sky. That means half of the life of man. We cannot ignore. ఆకాశంలో సగం నీవు అని ఒక తెలుగు పోయిట్ అనడం జరిగింది కాబట్టి ఆకాశం అంటే చాలా పెద్దది. దాంట్లో సామాజిక జీవితం, మానవ జీవితం కూడా కలిసి ఉన్నదన్న విషయాన్ని మనం గుర్తుంచుకోవాలి. ఈ సామాజిక మానవ జీవితంలో సగభాగం స్త్రీ కాబట్టి we cannot ignore the role played by women, not only in the family life and also in the social life, including various social movements, earlier national movement and freedom struggle. In post-independent India, they are also playing very crucial role in nation building activity and also development of progress of the society. I was going through many related literature related to participation of women in the freedom struggle in the later period also after independence. And so many incidents, individuals who played very crucial role in that freedom struggle is not properly recorded and memorized also. That is also another important dimension. The part played by the woman. Nowadays, historians also say that it is one of the very important area to be explored. the role of women in the freedom struggle and also in the nation building activity after independence. So I was going through one important news article today in Andhra Jyoti. Just I am telling you as an example to you. One named great freedom fighter, woman, lady, Digamarti Janaki Bayamma from Andhra Pradesh. When she was arrested in the civil disobedience movement in Andhra Pradesh in Visakhapatnam, at that time she was pregnant also. And she was imprisoned for 18 months. Later, then she was given an offer to take parole and go for delivery, leaving the jail also. She just refused. She doesn't want to go. And she gave birth to another, her daughter in that jail itself. That is the great sacrifices women made in those days. This is one aspect. మీకు తెలుసు ప్రత్యేకంగా చెప్పాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు. డెలివరీ టైంలో కూడా లేడీస్ దే ప్రిఫర్ టు గో టు దేర్ మదర్, దే వాంట్ టు దేర్ మదర్ అండ్ ఆల్ దట్. తల్లిగారింటికి పోయి అక్కడ ప్రసిద్ధి కావాలని చాలా మంది కోరుకుంటారు. కానీ ఆ రోజుల్లో ఆమె అలా చేసిందంటే ఎంత సాక్రిఫైస్ చేసిందో మనం అర్థం చేసుకోవచ్చు. అండ్ అట్ ది సేమ్ టైం ఇది ఒకటే కాదు, నాట్ ఓన్లీ దిస్ నాట్ ఓన్లీ civil disobedience movement or whatever it is, in the form of non-violence movements, ladies have actually participated in the armed struggle also. The best example is Arutla Kamaladevi in Telangana armed struggle. She was a squad leader, wife of Arutla Ramchandra Reddy. She took up the gun and fought against the Nizam rule. Not only that, Sakala Ilama, so many ladies were there in the anti-Nizam movement, freedom and movement. One more thing I am remembering, maybe it is in the name of story fiction written by Sri P.V. Narsorao, Kolla Ramava. That story, I don't think that is fiction, it is a reality. Yeah. A real character is there. Based on that only, he wrote a very beautiful story on the role played by the woman. Great role. But the point here is, these are the areas which were not recorded properly, not covered, and not brought to the annals of society and history of the movements. Symposium to encourage studies on role of women in the nation building and social building activity. And another important dimension I wanted to say here, since Madam Geetanjali is here, and the family members or wives of army personnel, army officers, you know very well how they must have undergone a pain when their husbands have sacrificed their lives in the protecting the borders in the war. After independence, India has to make war with China, Pakistan twice, and all that. So these are the various dimensions. Just we cannot ignore. We have to make study and bring all these dimensions to the social history of our country and also to our region. So, with these brief remarks and observations, I congratulate the Department of History and also Faculty of Social Sciences for organizing this important symposium.
President FWO, Telangana, and our mentor and a guide in all our activities and endeavors, Madam Sri Vani Devi, Member Legislative Council, Mahbubnagar Rangareddy, Hyderabad. She is a constant source of inspiration to us. And Ganta Chakrapani is online, and our Dean, Faculty of Social Science, and our guest of honor, Lillian Reddy, and the esteemed guest who is online, Professor Uma Chakravarti. Madam is a great source of inspiration for the feminist writers and feminist movements itself. And one more person, Anandi is online, and Shivakami is here, and Abhinaya and Sarla, and all Chalapalli Swarupa, all the esteemed guests who are invitees and directors, deans, and members of university, teaching and non-teaching. A very warm welcome to you. I join in our Vice Chancellor welcoming you to this event. And all those participants who are online, my scholars, they couldn't come because of several constraints. Far off places, welcome all of you. And Department of History is in forefront in conducting, we have conducted several events, symposia, in 70th year of independence also, we have called the nationwide historians and giving eminent speeches on the national movement, Fit India movement, and several seminars and conferences. And nearly 30 odd thousand students enroll for history alone every year out of the 1 lakh and odd students. And this number speaks about the passion for history by the students and the popular program, BA itself. And the Department of History has a credit of Sarvepalli Gopal, K. Panikkar, and several other esteemed professors who guided us in formulating the BA, MA, MPhil, PhD programs, and PG Diploma in Tourism and Development. And I join with my colleague Srinivas Vadanam, HOD, We all strived, our organizing committee also, to make this a reality. Coming to the concept, during the 75 years of India, several provisions were made to improve the situation of women and their well-being in the society. Many policies schemes formulated with an objective to bring about progress in that multifaceted areas, many areas, education, employment, health, and political participation. And the roots of these developments, when we observe, just now our Vice Chancellor sir was talking about, were in the 19th century reform movement, where the great leaders who strived hard to bring consciousness among women, with several bringing out the lacunas in the society, the social evils, and fight against the social evils. And many women were also forefront, Pandita Ramabai, Savitribai Phule, in bringing about the various dimensions of the women empowerment. And education for the marginalized was also considered the most important. The Indian national movement always is an inspiring saga, and even an entrancing saga. Despite the compilation of the vast corpus of literature, women's participation is very scanty, and in this plethora of literature, women participation in freedom movement and women's role and for their endeavor to the nation building remains a neglected area of research. So it's only in the 20th century beginning that women started coming into public sphere, from the tentative and relatively modest participation in the national movement to the great participation, mass movement when it comes to the Quit India, and Aruna Sathi and several other women and revolutionaries also. And however, the nature of participation their need to participate in the movement has not been documented adequately in the historical research. The entire historiography of the national freedom struggle focused around men and the role and the leaders, the challenges that women had to face, takes part in any movement or enter into public life itself, is one of the most area where we need to ponder upon. Revolutionary thinkers have been, because we have divided the two phases. First is pre-independence and next is the post-independent era. In the post-independent India, many changes have been taken place in the position of women, and the constitution provided the several steps to be taken by the government to improve the condition of women as a result. We have seen the enactments and the legislatures and empowerment policies and programs and public policies and for the betterment of women. And the results of these movements push them from the welfare to the development, and from development to the empowerment. So the main purpose of the symposium is to identify the gaps in the present historiography of women's participation and their role in the movements in the pre- and post-independent era, and to articulate the challenges faced by these women. Further, to study the enabling factors from the cultural, social, and political system changes that have taken place to felicitate this. So this intends, the symposium intends to unearth the unexplored area such as narratives of enduring resistance offered by the women during the nationalist movement, their how they perceive the nation. Just to cite an example, Virginia Woolf, feminist writer and an activist standing at the threshold of the Second World War, she tells that, when the question comes to whether it is a women's issue or the nation issue, she says that the nation or the country denied me the opportunity and refused to recognize me as an individual. So I'm fighting for my rights. So how to talk about the nation? So this kind of perception is also very important to look into when we talk to nationalist movement also. How the marginalized perceive the nation and the nationalism, and how the women themselves, when they were unable to come out of the houses, perceive this. Gendering, the second aspect is gendering Indian nationalism and its impact on different sections of women, particularly from the margins. And the sketches of the gendering public policies after independence and the path traversed by women in this long era of the journey of 75 years. This is precisely the theme, and we have eminent speakers today, and eagerly waiting to listen to them. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sudha. Now, next item on the agenda is messages by the guests. Now, I request for Honorable Rangareddy to give our valuable message.
YouTube live.
Okay, right.
గురుభ్యో నమః సభాయ నమః అందరికీ నమస్కారం. మన్నించాలి శేషాంకర్ గారు తెలుగులోనే మాట్లాడతారు.
మాట్లాడండి, పర్వాలేదు.
మాతృభాష మాకు సంబంధించిన భాష ఆటోమేటిక్గా మాతృభాష ముందుకు వస్తుంది. అందుకోసమని తెలుగులో మాట్లాడడానికి అనుమతి వేదికను అలంకరించిన ప్రొఫెసర్ గారు, వైస్ ఛాన్సలర్ గారు, అంబేద్కర్ యూనివర్సిటీ సీతారామరావు గారు, అలాగే ఇప్పటిదాకా ప్రసంగించిన సుధారెడ్డి గారు, గంటా చక్రపాణి గారు ఆన్లైన్ లో ఉన్నారని చెప్పారు. అలాగే ఏవిఎన్ రెడ్డి గారు, రిజిస్ట్రార్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ, మెయిన్ చీఫ్ గెస్ట్ శ్రీమతి గీతాంజలి ముండాల్ గారు, కుమార్ చక్రవర్తి గారు, ఇంకా పేపర్ ప్రజెంట్ చేయబోయే స్పీకర్స్ అందరికీ, ఆహుతులకు అందరికీ కూడాను చాలా మంచి సబ్జెక్ట్ ఇది. డిపార్ట్మెంట్ ఆఫ్ హిస్టరీ యూనివర్సిటీ వాళ్ళు, అంబేద్కర్ యూనివర్సిటీ వాళ్ళు ఏర్పాటు చేసిన ఈ కార్యక్రమం చాలా టచింగ్ గా, అంటే మహిళలకు అందరికీ చాలా దగ్గరగా ఉన్న సబ్జెక్ట్ ఇది. అది కూడా 75 సంవత్సరాల మన వజ్రోత్సవాల్లో భాగంగా, అలాగే 40 ఏళ్ల నుండి పైచిలుకు మన అంబేద్కర్ యూనివర్సిటీ స్టార్ట్ చేసిన ఈ సందర్భంగా ఇలా ఏర్పాటు చేయడం నాకు చాలా సంతోషం. ఆర్గనైజేషన్ ముందుగా నాకు కంగ్రాచులేషన్స్. మంచి టాపిక్ ఎన్నుకున్నందుకు. దశావతారాలు ఎత్తిన మహావిష్ణువు కూడా మరి అవతారం ఎత్తాలంటే అమ్మ కావాల్సిందే. అలాగే అమ్మ 24/7 365 రోజులు పనిచేస్తూనే ఉంటుంది. కానీ అది కనిపించని అభయహస్తం, అదృశ్యహస్తం మనందరికీ తెలిసిందే. అది మనకు భారత రాజ్యాంగం సమాన హక్కులు ఇచ్చిన, ఆడవాళ్ళు మగవాళ్ళు సమాన హక్కులు ఇచ్చిన, ఓటు హక్కు ఇచ్చిన, చాలా దేశాల కన్నా ముందుగానే మహిళలకు ఓటు హక్కు ఇచ్చిన పురాణాలు, ఇతిహాసాలు, మన ధర్మ సూక్ష్మాలు మహిళను ఒక గొప్ప ఆదిశక్తిగా చెప్పిన కూడాను సమాజంలో ఇంకా సమానమైన హోదా ఇవ్వలేదు. ఇద్దరూ సమానమే, కానీ కొంచెం పురుషుడు ఎక్కువ అని మనం వింటూ ఉంటాం. కానీ స్వాతంత్ర సమరంలో చాలా మంది అన్సంగ్ హీరోస్ లాగానే చాలా మంది ఆడవాళ్ళు అయితే అసలు వాళ్ళ పేరు కూడా బయటికి రాలేదు. చాలా మంది. ఒక్క ఝాన్సీ లక్ష్మీబాయి గురించి మనం మాట్లాడుకుంటాం. బ్రిటిష్ ప్రభుత్వానికి అగెనిస్ట్ గా, అంటే రాజ్యాధికారం ఉంది, రాజరికంలో వ్యవస్థలో ఉన్నది కనుక కాస్త ఆమె గురించి మనం పాఠాలు, పద్యాలు మాట్లాడుకుంటాం. చరిత్రలో కాస్త ఒక చాప్టర్ ఉంటుంది. కానీ స్వాతంత్రోద్యమంలో ఏ స్వాతంత్ర రాజకీయ నాయకుడు పని చేయాలన్నా కూడా నాకు తెలిసిన వరకు నాకన్నా ముందు తరం దాకా మగవాళ్ళు ఎవరు ఇంట్లో పనిచేసిన దాఖలాలు అయితే లేవు. ఆనందంలో ఏమి అనుకోకండి, నాకు తెలిసిందే చెప్తున్నాను. ఈ స్వాతంత్రం కోసం, యుద్ధాని కోసం, సంఘ సంస్కరణల కోసం, ఇంకా దేనికోసమైనా సరే కళాకారులు కావచ్చు, వాళ్ళు ఎవరైనా కావచ్చు, సోదరులకు అందరికీ అన్ని విధాల అమర్చి ఇంటి నుంచి పంపిస్తున్న వాళ్ళకి, బలం వచ్చే ఆహారాన్ని ఇచ్చిన వాళ్ళే కావచ్చు, లేకుంటే వాళ్ళకి సపోర్టింగ్గా మానసికంగా కావచ్చు, అనేక విధాలుగా సపోర్ట్ చేసిన ఆడపిల్లల గురించి మనం ఎక్కువగా చరిత్రలో చదువుకోలేదు. కానీ దాని గురించి రీసెర్చ్ చేయాలని సుధారాణి గారు అన్నారు. రీసెర్చ్ కావాలి, వాళ్ళందరి గురించి తెలియచెప్పాలి. ఎందుకు చెప్పాలి అంటే తర్వాత జనరేషన్ ఉంటుంది ఇన్స్పిరేషన్. ఒక మహిళ ఏది సాధించగలదు అని అంటే స్కై ఇస్ ద లిమిట్, ఆకాశంలో సగం అన్నారు మన వైష్ణవ్ గారు. సో అలా అందరము సమానమే అనే మాట ఇంకా మనం చెప్పాల్సిన సమాజంలో మనం ఉన్నాం. దీనికి కారణం ఎప్పుడు కుటుంబం అనే చెబుతాను నేను. అంతరిక్షంలో మరి ప్రయాణం చేసే ఒక సైంటిస్ట్ అయినా కావచ్చు, ఉమెన్ సైంటిస్ట్ అయినా కావచ్చు, లేకుంటే జెట్ విమానం నడుపుతున్న పైలట్ కావచ్చు. అమ్మాయికి పెళ్ళైతుందంటే ఏదో నడవలేదన్నట్టు 4 ఆడపిల్లలు పట్టుకుని స్టేజ్ మీదకి పెళ్లి మంటపానికి తీసుకెళ్తుంటారు. చాలా అపురూపంగా తీసుకొస్తుంది. కానీ ఇది అబ్బాయికి వర్తించదు. వ్యక్తిని కసులుతాను ఇట్లా వచ్చేస్తుంటాడు. చెప్తున్నానంటే ప్రతి వ్యవస్థలో మనం ఆచరిస్తున్న ప్రతి దాంట్లో కూడాను ఆడపిల్లలు విడిగా, మగపిల్లలు విడిగా మనం డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ ఫ్యామిలీ నుంచి మొదలవుతున్నాం. 6 కాగానే అమ్మాయి ఇంటికి రాలేదు ఇంకా అని ఇంట్లో అందరు ఎదురు చూస్తుంటారు. కాస్త లేట్ అయితే కాస్త ఇంకా ఒక చిన్న రణరంగం జరుగుతుంది. ఆ తర్వాత అలకలు, ఆ తర్వాత ఇప్పటికూ కొంచెం అభోజనం కూడా నడుస్తుంది రాత్రులు. కానీ మళ్ళీ మగపిల్లలకి ఇది వర్తించదు. ఎందుకు చెప్తున్నానంటే ప్లీజ్ ఫ్రెండ్స్, ట్రీట్ ద బాయ్ అండ్ గర్ల్ ఈక్వల్లీ సో దట్ వీ కెన్ గెట్ గుడ్ రిజల్ట్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇట్. చదువుకున్న ఆడపిల్లలందరూ, నేను కూడా విద్యా సంస్థలు నడుపుతున్నాను అనేక సంవత్సరాలుగా. క్లాస్లో ఫస్ట్ వస్తారు, క్లాస్లో బెస్ట్ స్టూడెంట్స్ ఉంటారు. పెళ్లి కాగానే ఇంటికి మాత్రమే పరిమితమవుతారు. నాకు చాలా బాధేస్తుంది. క్లాస్లో గోల్డ్ మెడల్ వచ్చిన అమ్మాయి కూడా ఇంట్లోనే ఉంటుంది. అంటే ఉండొద్దని చెప్పడం కాదు, కుటుంబాన్ని చూడొద్దని కాదు. కుటుంబం నడుస్తుంది ఆడపిల్ల మీద. కానీ ఆ తెలివంతా ఎక్కడ పోయింది? అంత తెలివికి ఆడ మగ వేదం లేదు కదా. సో అలాంటి నాలెడ్జ్ తర్వాత తరానికి ఇవ్వాల్సిన అవసరం, వాళ్ళ సర్వీసెస్ చాలా అవసరం ఉంది సొసైటీకి. సో అందరూ ముందు ట్రీట్ చేయడం, ఇంట్లో సమానంగా ట్రీట్ చేయడానికి ప్రయత్నించండి. ఆడమగ భేదం చూపించండి. ఆడపిల్ల ప్యాంట్ షర్ట్ వేసుకుంటే చాలా బాగున్నారు అని అంటారు, వెంటనే ఆడపిల్ల. అదే మగపిల్లవాడు కొంచెం రంగుల చొక్కా వేసుకోమని ఏంటా వేషాలు ఆడపిల్లలాగా అంటే ఆడపిల్లలు వేసుకునే బట్టలు వేరు, మగపిల్లలు వేసుకునే బట్టలు అని అన్ని విధాలు చెప్తుంటాం మనం. 6 గంటల తర్వాత ఆడపిల్ల పరిచయమే. ఇక్కడ నుంచి మనం ఇంకా ఎదగాలి. ఆడపిల్లలు కూడా భాగస్వాములు కావాలి. దేశాన్ని అభివృద్ధి చెందాలంటే అంబేద్కర్ గారు అన్నట్టుగా ఆడపిల్లలు ఎప్పుడైతే స్వాతంత్రం రాదో 6 గంటల తర్వాత తప్పకుండా ఇంట్లోనే ఉంటామని అనుకుంటారో అప్పుడు అస్వాతంత్రులే. ఒక చిన్న నా ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ చెప్పి ఇంట్లో పంచుకోవాలని. చాలా ఏళ్ళ క్రితం, చాలా లేట్ 60s ఒక స్టోరీ చదివాను. ఛాయాదేవి గారు అని చాలా మంది తెలుసు అనుకుంటారు. చాలా మంచి కథ రచయిత్రి. ఆవిడ వాళ్ళ అత్తగారు ఇద్దరు ఇంట్లో ఉన్నారు. రోడ్డు మీద ఏమంటారు, జై హింద్ అని, తర్వాత స్వతంత్ర భారత్ కి జై అనే నినాదాలు బాగా వినిపిస్తున్నాయి. ఊరంతా పండగ చేసుకున్నారు. 15th ఆగస్టు ఏదో ఉంది. అందరూ జై జై జవానాలతోని గుంపులుగా పోతున్నారు. అయితే వాళ్ళ అత్తగారికి కాస్త ఏజ్ కదా, నాకు కూడా అలాగా కొంచెం చెవుడు అన్నట్టు. ఏంటే ఏమవుతుంది, అమ్మాయి తిరుగుకోవడం పెళ్లి లక్ష్మి ఏదో జై జై అంటారు. ఏంటి జై అంటే మన భారతదేశానికి స్వతంత్రం వచ్చింది, మీకు ఇంతనా తెలియదా అని కోడలండి. స్వతంత్ర దేశానికి స్వతంత్రం వచ్చింది ఆ దేశానికి. ఓకే, మరి మనకెప్పుడు వస్తుంది అన్నదట ఆ కోడలు. సో అలాంటి స్థితి నుంచి మనం బయటపడాలి. నేను ఇవాళ మనం స్వాతంత్ర సమరంలో కాంట్రిబ్యూట్ చేసిన ఉమెన్, అంతకుముందు ఆ తర్వాత అనే సబ్జెక్ట్ మనం మాట్లాడుకుంటున్నాం. కానీ అచ్చంగా నేను ఇవాళ
మహిళా దినోత్సవం లాగా మాట్లాడుతున్నాను. ఎందుకంటే ఇట్ ఈస్ సో టచింగ్ టు ద ఉమెన్, ఆడవాళ్ళకి అందరికీ కూడా. ఒక చిన్న 2-3 ఉదాహరణలు చెప్పి నేను వివరించుకుంటాను. ఇప్పుడు కూడా మనకు అనేక ఇంటర్నేషనల్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ స్పోర్ట్స్ అవుతున్నాయి. అందులో చాలా మంది ఆడపిల్లలు మన దేశానికి నిఖత్ జరీర్ అయితే మన అమ్మాయి, బాక్సింగ్ అని అంటే మగపిల్లలకు సంబంధించిన స్పోర్ట్ అంటారు. కానీ అందులో మరి అమ్మాయిని నిరూపించుకుంది, ప్రపంచ ఖ్యాతి సంపాదించుకుంది, దేశం అంతా రాష్ట్రం అంతా గర్వపడేలాగా. అలాగే జాతీయోద్యమంలో చెప్పాలంటే కస్తూర్బా గాంధీ నాకు మొట్టమొదటిగా ఆదర్శ మహిళ. ఆవిడ సహకారం లేకుంటే గాంధీ మహాత్ముడు అయ్యేవారా? ఒక్కసారి ఆలోచించాం. జాతిపిత గాంధీజీ మా అందరికీ కూడా చిన్నప్పటి నుంచి నరనగర్లో మనకు పాతిపోయింది. మనం ఇంకొక 10-20 తరాలైనా కూడా మన మహాత్మా గాంధీ మన జాతిపిత అని చెప్తుంటాం. కానీ ఆయన సహధర్మచారిని కస్తూర్బా గారి సహకారం లేదు, సాధ్యమే లేదు. ఎన్ని విషయాలు అతన్ని చూసుకోవడమే కాకుండా ఆవిడ బాలికా విద్య గురించి ఇప్పుడు కూడా మనకు కస్తూర్బా స్కూల్స్ ఉన్నాయి దేశం అంతా కూడాను, ప్రతి రాష్ట్రంలో ఉన్నాయి, మనకు అందరికీ తెలుసు. సో అలాంటి మహాను బావురాల గురించి మనం ఒకసారి స్మరించుకోవడం చాలా అవసరం అని అనుకున్నాను. అనీ బెసెంట్ గురించి మీకు తెలియని విషయమే లేదు. ఆవిడ మన దేశంలో పుట్టకున్నా కూడా మరి ఆవిడ చేసిన అనేక కాంగ్రెస్ పార్టీలో ఆవిడ గవర్నర్ గా కూడా కొనసాగింది. గొప్ప ఉద్యమకారిణి. ఉమాదేవి గారండి, ఉమాదేవి అని ఎవరో మరి తెల్లదిరని కూడా బ్రిటిష్ ప్రభుత్వం ఎదిరించిన 1847లోనేనటండి. ఝాన్సీ లక్ష్మీబాయి గురించి మనకు అందరికీ తెలుసు. ఈ మధ్య ఒక చాలా మంచి డాన్స్ బ్యాలే చూశాను, డాక్టర్ లక్ష్మీ సెహగల్ గారి గురించి. ఆవిడ చేసిన కాంట్రిబ్యూషన్, ఆవిడ డాక్టర్, ఆవిడ అది ఆర్మీలో ఆమె చేసిన సేవలు ఎంత చక్కటి బ్యాలేని మధ్య చూపించారు. రియల్లీ ఆవిడ గురించి ఇంకా చదువుకుంటే బాగుండు. నిజంగా ఇలాంటి వ్యక్తుల గురించి చదవాలంటే నిజంగా ఎవరు రీసెర్చ్ చేసినట్టు లేదు. మరి లేకుంటే నాకు అందుబాటులో తెలియదు, ఎవరికైనా తెలిస్తే నాకు అందించగలరు. 1947లో ఉమెన్ అంటే ఒక నిమిషం ఆలోచించుకోండి. ఇంతకుముందు నేను చెప్పినట్టుగా ఇప్పుడు కరెక్షన్ అంటున్నా 6 o'clock తర్వాత, కానీ అప్పటి సంగతి ఆలోచించండి. మహాత్మా గాంధీ ఎంత తొందర ఆడవాళ్ళు హెల్ప్ చేద్దామని ఉద్యమంలో పాల్గొంటుంటే బ్రిటిష్ సైనికులు బాగా సతాయించేవాళ్ళు. అయితే అప్పుడు గాంధీ గారు ఏమన్నారంటే, మరి వాళ్ళని మేమైతే ఏదో కష్టపడి మగవాళ్ళం పడతాను, మీరు ఇంట్లో ఉండండి, రావద్దన్నారు. అప్పుడు కొందరు ఎదిరించారు, నో 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 మేము కూడా పార్టిసిపేట్ చేస్తాం. వాళ్ళు మమ్మల్ని చికాకు పరుస్తే అది వాళ్ళ ఔన్నత్యం కాదు, వాళ్ళ నీచత్వం అన్నది. కానీ మేము స్వాతంత్రంలో మీతో పాటు పాల్గొంటామని తర్వాత గాంధీ గారు మళ్ళీ చాలా మందికి అనుమతి ఇచ్చారట. అటువంటి కాంట్రిబ్యూషన్, ఉమెన్ కాంట్రిబ్యూషన్ ఆ టైంలో. ఇట్లాగే ఇప్పుడు కూడాను ఇప్పటిదాకా మనకు ఓవైసీ గారు చెప్పినట్టుగా ఒక్క డిస్టెన్స్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్ ఫీల్డ్ లో ఒక మంచి అవకాశం, చదువుకోవడానికి ఒక మంచి అవకాశం. ఆ అవకాశాన్ని ఏ మహిళ కూడా పాల్గొనుకోవడం లేదు, వేస్ట్ చేసుకోవడం లేదు. దే ఆల్ ఆర్ స్టడీయింగ్ వెరీ వెల్. మా కళాశాల మీకు చాలా దగ్గర, నేను కొంతమంది నడుపుతున్న కళాశాల దాదాపు 89-90% ఆడపిల్లలే టీచ్ చేయడానికి వస్తారు, ఆడపిల్లలే మంచి ర్యాంక్స్ తెచ్చుకుంటారు. ఇదేందో సర్ప్రైజింగ్. అంటే అప్పటిదాకా చదువుకోవడానికి అనుమతి లేకపోవడము, మరి అణగదొక్కబడము నాకు తెలియదు. ఎంత బాల్ను మనం ఎంత కింద విసురుతామో అంత పైకి లేస్తుంది అన్నట్టుగా నా జీవితంలో నేను చూస్తున్న ఈ ఒక అపురూప సన్నివేశం. నిజంగా నేను చాలా అదృష్టవంతురాలిని. చదువుకోవడానికి ఎన్ని ప్రతిబంధకాలు చూశాను, చదువుకోవాలని ప్రోత్సహిస్తున్న ఈ జనరేషన్ కూడా నేను చూస్తున్నాను. సో ఇలాంటి మంచి అవకాశం అందిపుచ్చుకుంటున్న ఆడపిల్లలందరూ కూడా దేశాన్ని అభివృద్ధి పదంలో నడిపించడానికి ఇంకా ఇంకా కృషి చేయాలి. మరి రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వాలు జాతీయత మనకు అందుతున్న అనేక పథకాలను అసలు ముందుగా మనం గ్రహించి వాటిని అందరినీ ఉపయోగించుకొని మరి దేశాభివృద్ధిలో పాలు పంచుకోవాలి. ఆ ఆకాశంలో సగమే కాదు, సగం మించుకోవాలి. ఇప్పుడున్న జనాభా లెక్కల ప్రకారం 48% అంటున్నారు. దట్ ఈస్ నాట్ రైట్. భ్రూణ హత్యలు ఇవన్నీ కాలం పోయింది. ఆడపిల్ల పుడితే సంతోషించే కాలం వచ్చిందని నేను అనుకుంటున్నాను. వాళ్ళు బాగా అన్ని రంగాల్లో మంచిగా పర్ఫామ్ చేస్తున్నారు. ఆ మధ్య ఒక పిక్చర్ చూసాను, ఎంతో చక్కగా ఉంది. అది ఆర్మీ ఆఫీసర్ లాగా సెలెక్ట్ అయిపోయిన తర్వాత ఒక్కతే అమ్మాయి ఉంటుంది. ఆ అమ్మాయి ఎదుర్కొన్న అనేక కష్టాలు మరి అదొక ఆదర్శంగా మనం తీసుకోగలం. మొత్తం ఆఫీసర్స్ లో ఒక్కతే అమ్మాయి ఉంటుంది. ఆ ఒక్క అమ్మాయి ఎదుర్కోవడం అంటే అంతమందిని గుంజన్ సక్సేనా థ్యాంక్ యూ. గుంజన్ సక్సేనా ఆ లైఫ్ హిస్టరీ మీద తీసిన అది ఆ సినిమా చాలా చాలా బాగుంది. సో అందరికీ ఆదర్శంగా కాగలరు వీళ్ళందరూ, ఈ మహిళలందరూ దేశ అభివృద్ధిలో భాగస్వామ్యం పంచుకుని దేశాన్ని ప్రపంచ పటంలో నిలిపించాలి అనే పెద్దవాళ్ళందరూ కలలు కన్నారు. ఇప్పుడే నన్ను ఇంట్రడ్యూస్ చేస్తున్నప్పుడు మా నాయన గారు పివి గారు అనేవారు, ఈ దేశాన్ని ఎలా అంటే సూపర్ పవర్స్ రెండు కాదు, మనదే సూపర్ పవర్ కావాలి అని ఎన్నో సార్లు ఆయన మనసులో అనుకుని చెప్తూ ఉండేవారు, మాతో ముచ్చటించేవారు. మీటింగ్లో అన్న సందర్భాల కన్నా ఎక్కువ అమనపడేవారు, తాపత్రయపడేవారు. రష్యా అమెరికాలే సూపర్ పవర్స్ కాదు, ఎప్పుడైతే మహిళలందరూ భాగస్వాములు అవుతారో అభివృద్ధి పదంలో అప్పుడే సూపర్ గా మనం వెలుగొందగలం ప్రపంచ పటంలోని. వాళ్ళు కన్నా కళలు మనం సాకారం చేద్దాం. ఇలాంటి విషయాల పట్ల మంచి సింపోజియం అరేంజ్ చేసిన కార్యకర్తలకి, ఈ ఆర్గనైజ్ చేసిన వాళ్ళందరికీ, ఆర్గనైజర్స్ కి, సపోర్ట్ చేస్తున్న యూనివర్సిటీ వాళ్ళకి ముఖ్యంగా నేను ధన్యవాదాలు తెలియజేస్తున్నాను. ఈ పేపర్ ప్రెజెంటేషన్స్ అన్ని మళ్ళీ పబ్లికేషన్ చేస్తే మాలాంటి వాళ్ళు చదువుకోవడానికి అవకాశంగా ఉంటుంది, ఇన్స్పిరేషన్ గా ఉంటుంది తర్వాత వాళ్ళకి. థ్యాంక్ యూ సో మచ్ గివింగ్ మీ దిస్ ఆపర్చునిటీ. అంతకుముందు కొంచెం మాట్లాడమనే వాళ్ళు, కొంచెమే మాట్లాడేదాన్ని. ఇది సందేశమా మీటింగ్గా తెలియదు, కానీ ఈ సబ్జెక్ట్ మాకు సంబంధించింది కానీ కొంచెం ఎక్కువ టైం తీసుకున్నందుకు థ్యాంక్ యూ సో మచ్.
Thank you very much, madam. Now I request our beloved registrar, Dr. M. Reddy, to give his brief message.
Respected dignitaries on the dais and online participants, good afternoon to all. So first, at outset, I appreciate the Department of History, Faculty of Social Science, organizing such important symposium at present context because of 75 years of independence India, Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav. All the celebrations are organized by the central and state governments. Madam, already Madam Madam and the Vice Chancellor given message about regarding the concern, but I want to share a small. Lot of the leaders have been explored as the biggest leaders, what of the Jatpita or nation leaders. The behind is women. Without women, there is no possibility to their success. 100% their success depends on women. Today also the same happening. Swami Vivekananda clearly emphasized, as a bird cannot fly on one wing, without women, there is no progress of this society. So I really, it's a great opportunity to me to hear about the discussions and deliberations of the symposium. Now, everyone is known that few leaders, the nameplates are photographs, but behind the major women community, what actually they sacrificed, what their contribution is come out as in research articles and publication books. I hope that the Department of History will publish on behalf of the university such a leaders' stories for further inspiration to the younger generation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Emil. Now I request our Professor Vadanam Srinivas to introduce the guests to the dais.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor K. Sitaramara Garu, today's Chief Guest, Geetanjali Mandal Garu, and Guest of Honor, Vani Devi Garu, our Registrar, Dr. A.V.R. Reddy Garu, and Dean Faculty of Social Sciences, Ganta Chakrapani Garu, and today's Director Symposium, Professor E. Suzarani Garu, and my dear friends, dignitaries of the dais. Good afternoon to you all. I'm very happy to introduce today's guests of this National Symposium on Women in nation building, pre and post independent India. First of all, I would like to introduce our today's chief guest, Geetanjali Mandal Garu. Mrs. Geetanjali Mandal Garu is an alumnus of Maharani Gayatri Girls Public School, Jaipur. She holds a bachelor's degree in clinical psychology and a postgraduate degree in counseling psychology from Maharaja Sayajirao University, Baroda. She has dedicated her life towards upliftment of children with special needs. And she started her journey in this field by working for early intervention. She has also worked with Institute of Development Studies, Jaipur, in the field of child poverty. She thereafter moved on to management of various schools for CWSN run by Indian Army called Asha schools across the country. Her expertise in the field has been utilized as a consultant to help improve functioning of Asha schools and recently to conceptualize and conduct Indian Army's empowerment campaign for CWSN called Embracing Uniqueness in Secunderabad. A passionate advocate of empowerment of women, she has utilized the Army Wives Welfare Association for this cause. Madam has championed higher education and financial independence amongst wives of Army personnel. Her interests including traveling, reading, alternative healing, and antiques. Mrs. Geetanjali Mandal is married to Major General Ranjit Singh Mandal, General Officer commanding Telangana Andhra Sub-area. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. And now I would like to introduce another guest of honor, Surabhi Vani Devi Garu. She's just now she has given wonderful message to all of us. Surabhi Vani Devi Garu is an Indian politician, academician, and artist. She was elected as MLC in Telangana Legislative Council election from Mahbubnagar, Rangareddy, Hyderabad Graduates Constituency in March 2021. Srimati Vani Devi Garu was born to former Prime Minister of India, P.V. Narasimha Rao Garu, on 1st April 1952 in Vangara village of then Karimnagar district in Telangana, India. She did her schooling from HSC from Government Girls High School, Hyderabad, BA from Usmania University, and Diploma in Finance from JNTU. She served as a lecturer in JNTU between 1992-95. Srimati Vani Devi Madam is an artist, educationist, social activist past 35 years. Founder principal of the Sri Venkateshwara Group of Institutions, and also she established Surabhi Education Society, Sri Venkateshwara College of Fine Arts in the year 1991. Madam is an artist. Her favorite subject in it is nature and medium is watercolors and acrylics. She has held more than 15 solo exhibitions, several group shows, and seminars, talks in India and abroad since 1973. Madam has got many awards like awarded International Women's Achievement Award by Telangana State Government in 2016 and awarded Pratibha Puraskar Award by Potti Sriramulu Telugu University. Thank you, madam. Thank you very much for being with us. Today's keynote addressee, Professor Uma Chakravarti, I would like to introduce her. Uma Chakravarti madam is a feminist historian who taught history at Miranda House, Delhi University, where she also curated film festivals and individual screenings of documentary films from the late 70s onwards. She has also been associated with the movements for women's rights and democratic rights since the 70s. As part of her lifelong engagement with the everyday histories of women, Uma Chakravarti has recently made 3 films. A Quite Little Entry on Women's History and the Small Archives of Unknown People. A second film on the 1960s and 1970s in India and the way political and social events at that time shaped individual women's lives, titled Fragments of a Past. Her third film, Ek Inqilab Aur Aya, dwells on the multiple histories of Muslim women which we rarely see in documentary cinema. Uma Chakravarti is an Indian historian and filmmaker. Beginning in the 1980s, Chakravarti wrote extensively on Indian history, highlighting issues relating to gender, caste, and class, publishing 7 books over the course of her career. Her body of work mostly focused on the history of Buddhism and that of ancient and 19th century India. Born to a bureaucrat from Palghat, Kerala, Chakravarti went to school in Delhi and Bangalore. She completed her master's in history from the Benares Hindu University and ventured into teaching. Chakravarti established a career as an educator at the Miranda House, University of Delhi, where she taught from 1966 to 1998. And Madam has published her first book, Social Dimensions of Early Buddhism, as a part of her doctoral study in 1987. Her subsequent writings, the most successful of which are Rewriting History, The Life and Times of Pandita Ramabai, and Gendering Caste Through a Feminist Lens, have been well received by both the audience and fellow academicians. A leading scholar of women's and feminist history writing in subcontinent, she has been called the founding mother of the women's movement in India. Apart from engaging with the feminist issues, she has also worked as a democratic rights activist, participating in several fact-finding committees, including the International Tribunal on Justice for Gujarat. She also writes newspaper columns on contemporary issues concerning women and human rights. Chakravarti has also directed 4 documentary films, A Quite Little Entry, Fragments of a Past, Ek Inquilab Aur Aya, Lucknow, 1920-1949, and Prison Diaries, all of which focus on, among other issues, women's history in India. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving this opportunity.
So, Dr.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, the audience. Now, the next item on the agenda is addressed by our chief guest of this inaugural function, Srimati Geetanjali Mandal.
Namaskar and good afternoon. It's been an interesting 45 minutes, and we've heard everyone speaking. Ma'am, this is Vani Devi. I missed out on the better part of your lecture because I don't follow Telugu. So I will have to have Professor Sudharani translate it for me later so that I can also get the essence of it and have a take back. Right? Good afternoon, everyone. Respected Vice Chancellor, Professor Sitharama Rao, and Srimati Vani Devi, eminent speakers, students, and guests. At the outset, I'd like to congratulate Dr. BRAOU Ambedkar Open University, the Department of History, Faculty of Social Sciences, for organizing this symposium on women in nation building, pre and post-independent India. Education is a continuous and a lifelong process and need not be confined to a classroom, hence the importance of open universities in our country today. Dr. BRAOU Ambedkar Open University is a testimony to this fact. The university has been making consistent efforts in maintaining its high standards and has been contributing towards learning and higher education since the past 4 decades, taking education to the doorsteps of the learner. Presently, the university caters, I'm told, to almost 125,000 learners in Telugu, that is in both Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. With the new education policy 2020, higher education institutions are expected to function in a global hub by adopting measures such as improvised course material, acquisition of skills and knowledge through e-learning. I'm happy to learn and to inform you that from this academic year onwards, the university has opened its program to the defense personnel and their dependents. And I'm confident that we will utilize this and make the most. Coming to today's topic, women in nation building, pre and post-independent India. We have very eminent speakers today, so I wouldn't want to really interfere in all of that. And we have had a bit of it. But nonetheless, my 2 bits on the topic. The symposium, which is being organized to identify gaps in the present historiography of women's participation, their role in the movements, pre and post-independent era, and to articulate the challenges faced by women to enter into public life is extremely relevant and very much required. Throughout Indian history, women have been contributing and providing and paving a way forward for the future generations. Their contributions have had a lasting impact. There is no field or profession where women have not proved their mettle. Though there may be a disparity in the numbers, their contribution is immense. I think somewhere we also need to rewrite our history textbooks so that we can give women who have paved the way due importance. There is a lesson to be learned from each and every one of them. It is a fact that women are architects of society as they raise and groom the next generation, help building a family, in turn building a society and a nation. I'm reminded of a speech delivered by Shri M. Hamid Ansari, our ex-Vice President, during the first conference of the women legislators in India in March 2016. I quote, "Women's contribution is crucial to building a strong and vibrant nation. We ignore it at our own peril," unquote. I look forward to today's symposium, hearing the speakers, and once again would like to congratulate the Open University for holding this, and I wish them the very best for their future endeavors. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, madam, for your very valuable message given to our audience. Now I request Professor Uma Chakravarti, who is joined in this program online. I request her to give her keynote address in this inaugural session.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, we'll just keep the chairs like this. So
Yeah,
green up here.
sure.
Let me go down.
Also.
Should we just go down? I think.
In the cooling board.
It will be easier.
Madam, no? Yeah. Good afternoon, Madam Uma. Uma Chakravarti, ma'am. Yeah. You're online?
Yes, I'm online. I'm online.
Yeah, please. You can start your presentation.
All right. All right. Namaskaram. Good morning to everybody. I'm very sorry that I can't be there with you physically, which I should have done because I have an attachment for Hyderabad because that's where my in-laws used to live. My mother-in-law, I think, was a Telangana citizen of resident of Telangana, because she used to live in a small Samasthanam, and then they retired in Hyderabad. But I can't be because one of the things that the COVID has done has made travel restrictions so difficult that I'm no longer traveling as well as I do. And I wanted to say to you all that perhaps I'm the only person in this entire audience who actually saw that flag flying on the 15th of August, 1947, because I was born in 1941 and I was 6 years old when India became independent. So I have a striking visual memory of the ceremonies that day. I also have a striking, unfortunately, the striking memory of Mahatma Gandhi's funeral, which I actually witnessed. I went to, and in a strange coincidence, my husband heard the shot that killed Mahatma Gandhi because they used to live next door. So history and the history of our independence struggle and of this country has been very much a part of our lives. And so I am very delighted that you are doing this seminar and that you have focused on women, which is good because women don't usually get their due in such matters. I decided, given the long arc of history that I myself have occupied, that I will actually talk today about the women who went to prison mostly before independence, and a couple of people who went to jail immediately after independence also, because one of them pertains to Telangana, and I will be able to bring her up and bring it close to your space, your region. So I want to just focus on a number of women who went to jail for their political work. I want to begin with the 1930s, when really the independence movement began to make an impact and drew young people at that point of time into the movement for independence, the anti-colonial struggle. And among these was a woman called, I've used prison memoirs and a few interviews to build up to actually substantiate what I'm saying. I'm drawing from these prison memoirs as well as from the two interviews that I have conducted with people post 1949, post 1947. So let me begin with the 1930s. Now, in the 1930s, one of the prison memoirs, which was quite interesting, was by a person called Beena Das. She was a radical and she was incarcerated in jail. And her memoirs, though brief, are very striking because it tells us about the manner in which the prison replicated colonial power that existed outside. So clearly the prison staff as well as the administration felt that women needed to earn their keep by doing work. So, you know, the work that prisoners are supposed to do, which nowadays I think we pile up and we give to the prisoners when they leave the jail, at that point seems to have been used for just the daily needs of the women. So there's a very poignant description by Beena Das when she says, she gets up in the morning and she says, what is the point of this beautiful morning? I mean, what am I supposed to do with it? And there is a lot of reflection around the lack of freedom in that space. And then soon enough, you have to go off and start stitching. They were basically asked to stitch napkins, which were probably sold in the market. And the whole day goes in using the machine and stitching those napkins. So there are a series of reflections around that. At one point, the women all resist a terrible a violation of human rights in the jail because an asthmatic woman is beaten and she dies. So then the women are really upset. All the women in the jail are very upset and they go on a hunger strike. Now, for a few days, nobody pays any attention to them. But then after that, some notice is taken. They're taken to hospital and there they get the newspaper. For the first time, they get something like contemporary to read. And then the memoirs goes on to talking about how Gandhiji hears of these women in the jail, and then he shows an interest in meeting them. Then two of these women are taken to meet him. They have a discussion. She comes from some kind of radical movement, underground movement, but she and Gandhiji talk about the use of the non-use of violence, and the description goes into how we have to actually have a struggle which is non-violent. And so there's this series of reflections that she articulates. And in the end, when they come out, soon afterwards, they are released. And she says, you know, one of the big things about freedom is that you die, even if you are dying, you die under an open sky. And you see, and you die among your own people. And that seems to be a very important sentiment in the people who went off and devoted themselves to the country's liberation, but also had certain basic aspirations. So Beena Das, I think, whom now most people may not know of, I wanted to begin with her. I'll go on to my second character is Durga Devi Vohra. Durga Devi Vohra, or someone who came to be known as Durga Bhabi, because she was associated with the great escape of Bhagat Singh after the incident that happened in Lahore when they took revenge for Lala Lajpat Rai's, the physical violence on Lala Lajpat Rai, which led to his death. So Durga, she's known in history as Durga Bhabi because she was Bhabi to a number of the revolutionaries of her time. And she describes, and with her, I had the privilege of being able to do interviews, substantial interviews for over 3 or 4 days, number of tapes that we collected. And what was striking about her is what made her into the person that she was. She studied only till class 5. So she was not formally highly educated. But she remembers an incident in which she watched the tenants of her in the ancestral lands being beaten for not paying the lagan. And that made such an impact on her that she actually turned into a humanist, socialist kind of person, even as a young child, because she could see that was so wrong and so unfair. She was then married to Bhagwati Charan Vohra, and the whole group became associated with what was called the Hindustan Socialist Republican Army. And it's in that capacity that she made it possible for Bhagat Singh to escape. Now, what is significant in the account that she gave to us is that people keep saying that, that's the most important incident of my life, but that was not the most important incident of my life. And she said, what was the big deal? I mean, I only had to fake being his wife. And I had my son with me. And so we looked like a family, and it became possible for them to escape. But she said, that's not the most difficult thing that I did. I did many, many other difficult jobs for the revolutionary nationalist movement. So her own take on the work that she did is quite significant, because she saw this as a very male-oriented approach to looking at her. That is, she's important because she made it possible for Bhagat Singh to escape. But that she on her own did a number of things is not something that is recorded either in history or paid much attention to. And that is really the powerful, lasting impact of what she told us. So she lived for many, many years. They were disillusioned in the end. Finally, she went into education. She ran a school, and she died in her 90s, when she was over 90 years old. So this is a woman, and she was very sad about what had happened to India post the becoming independent. So in a sense, you know, those who fought for independence also watched what happened to the country, and some of it was not very pleasant or not very acceptable as far as the old old nationalists were concerned. So, so we should. There's also the memoir of a woman called Urmila Shastri, quite unknown. But what is significant is that she spent 2 stints in jail, and at the end of a second stint, when she was released, she passed away because the prison regime was too much for her. But she describes prison as a space in which brutality is something that is allowed to be the dominant motive in the lives of the people. And she describes very poignantly also the corruption that exists in jail and how people are sucked into it. And one of her most poignant descriptions is that ordinary women prisoners who are sitting or in jail for maybe some crime that they have committed or whatever it is, what happens to them? They've got small children that they have left behind in their homes, that when somebody comes to visit them and brings the children with them, the children are not allowed to touch and feel their mothers, because even that has been made into something in which money must first pass. And so the corruption, the let's say the monetary corruption that we have also felt really oppressed by in recent times, that is there in the colonial regime. And it's a very poignant description. So one of the things that Urmila Shastri talks about is that, is there no other way to run prisons? And this question of hers is very important as far as I'm concerned, because I too think of, are there no other ways in which prisons can be administered, in which there is humanity that is allowed to be express itself? So I particularly liked this memoir. After her second regime, the incarceration was too much and she died. So she's one of the few people who dies soon after she's released. Now, of course, then we can go to, there's Manmohini Zutshi, Lahore also, grew up in Lahore. Now, she and her friends went to jail because they protested the judgment on Bhagat Singh, because they felt that that was wrong, and then they protest outside the college gates and they shut down the college for a while. This is in 1930, and finally they end up in jail. Now, what is very interesting is that there are a bunch of I think more than 30-40 women, and they all demand that the prison manual is adhered to. Also, trials used to take place in those days, could take place inside the jail. So they insist that the rules should be maintained and their families should be allowed to come in and watch the trial proceedings, so that it's not held in camera or outside of the eye of common people. So they do all of this, and then they have many struggles within the jail. Finally, they are to be released, and suddenly the jail authorities release them one day before, and they release them at night. Now the jail is some distance from the city, and this group of women, some 30 women, have no means of going home because there are no tongas at the gate, and they need to take a vehicle, take a tonga in order to go home. So they spend the whole night sitting outside in the cold, and they wait it out. But they use they are very creative, because they managed to send through the tonga, one of the last tonga drivers, a message to the newspapers saying this is what has happened to them. And that news is carried early in the morning in the newspapers. And then in the morning, when actually they are ready to go back, there's a huge crowd that collects over there, treats them all as heroines. And it's quite interesting, the description of the solidarity between people outside and between these girls, who are, most of them are young, and they have this act of resistance that they've shown. So, just the incident is interesting. It's an unusual dharna that they do, and they get good results for it. I've only selected a few of the thousands of women went to jail. Not all of them wrote their memoirs, but some did, and I've selected a few. Now, one of the people I would like to dwell a little bit on is Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay. She's better known in her history. She belonged to the Congress Socialist group. She was quite radical. But she began life with a quote unquote disadvantage because she was a child widow. Now, despite the fact that she was a child widow, that was put aside. She came from a progressive family. They educated her. She went to, she was extremely well educated. She was very articulate. Her book called Inner Spaces, Outer Spaces is quite a classic because it's a very descriptive account of her life. She's very good at detailing people, issues, and so on. So she goes on to becoming quite a radical, fiery leader. She's known for her participation in the salt agitation in Bombay, where she went to the High Court. She went with packets of salt to the High Court, saying, buy salt for freedom, and she's trying to sell it to the judges in the High Court. So it's really quite a fascinating account. There's also photographs and so on. In her case, she's well documented, so there are photographs also to support her participation in the movement, and it's very radical. But what was very interesting is that her description of the two rounds of jail time that she spent. Very interesting because she's picked up and put as a vagrant because she's taken off the street in outside, violating what might be the rule of the times. And she goes to jail as a vagrant, so she doesn't get her normal B class or whatever it is. She's a vagrant and has to follow the regime. And so, she bonds with other women and so on. But what's the most interesting part of her description is that they have a crazy rule which says that the women in jail cannot wear undergarments. Now, this is absolutely, I don't know how it is. Maybe there was some kind of a, strange regime that existed. So the first of their radical actions is that they actually have a revolt, a kind of demonstration and a strike over the right to wear undergarments. And that happens. And the authorities are furious with her. They take her out because she's regarded as the ringleader. And she's sent away to another jail where she spends the rest of her time. She's sent to Belgaum jail, I think. And there she spends a longest stress. Now, she gets jaundice over there and she nearly dies. So it's a bad time. There's the food is not something that is conducive and so on. Finally, she gets better diet and she recovers. And then she decides to run a hospital inside the jail, inside the women's wing of the jail. So she runs this hospital and she gets the doctors give her all the different colored medicines and she dispenses them and so on. And she describes how she works with these women. Many of them are not actually, not only have physical ailments, but they have psychological problems. By then, long incarceration means they really are in a state of depression and so on. And she works with these women. One of the challenges is that there is a woman who has to have a child, who has a child. And that child is, Kamala Devi has to help deliver the child. Now, she has no skills at this and she's really terrified of what she has to do. And she's very upset of whatever happens. And then thereafter, she says, for the rest of my time when I'm here, please, I'm not going to have those cases must go to the hospital. But other than that, she spends time, doing this constructive work inside the jail, which is actually quite moving and quite humane. And she carried some of this into her post-independence work, because she was known for the fact that she did a lot of work for the refugees post 1947. There were whole townships around Delhi that were created at that time, and she worked to them. She also worked with the handloom industry. Many of you will know that because you have an active handloom revival industry, you used to at least, in Hyderabad. So she does that kind of work. There's very powerful work, but she also works for the rights of groups of people who nobody pays any attention to. So during the Punjab crisis, for instance, she actually did fact-finding. And she works for children, the rights of children. So here's this woman who actually, could have been perhaps, a leader in the ministry and whatever it is, because she was a highly conscientious and highly conscious person. But she doesn't. She goes into this kind of constructive work of rebuilding India on a certain, along a certain track. And I think that vision is very important as far as she's concerned. So she does that, and that is what marks her out. I'm picking on figures that are slightly on the margins. So one of the people I want to talk to you about today is Mridula Sarabhai. Now, Mridula Sarabhai, I don't even know how, she's not even got too much written by way of her biographies. There's one biography written by Dr. Aparna Basu belonging to Delhi University. It's a fine biography. And Mridula Sarabhai is known. She became known for the fact that she did partition relief work. But before she did partition relief work, she was very close to Gandhiji. She was an extremely secular, democratic person. Though she belonged to the Sarabhai family, she went to jail as an ordinary criminal, quote-unquote criminal, sleeping in the jail with 9 other women. She was saying that you can't even turn over without, touching another human being because they're all laid out on the ground and whatever. She seeks no facilities, even though her father is a very well-known industrialist and so on. And she did remarkable work with Gandhiji at the time of Noakhali. So then there's bloodshed is happening across and whatever. And she and Gandhiji are walking through the villages, speaking to people, bringing some form of humanity to them and compassion to the riot survivors, to the violence survivors. So she's really very, very prominent person who deserves to have more than simply, she deserves to be, I think she deserves to be in the history books and in the history books for children also. But anyway, so she, now what is striking about her is that she carried that vision. What is India about? What is it going to be? What kind of India are we going to have? In her post work, she does abduction relief work. That is, she brings back abducted women from Pakistan to India and facilitates people going from this side to that side. So she does that kind of work. But most importantly, when the struggles began, early years in Kashmir, she, and Sheikh Abdullah is incarcerated and he's jailed, she actually takes a stand and she says that you can't do this. And one of the things that she raises is, you need to try him. You need to try him or release him. You can't actually keep him under preventive detention. Now, this preventive detention, which is actually now something that is all over us, it's preventive. That has been a feature in pre-independence times, but it's also a feature of immediately after post-independence. So all the cases that I know of, and people that I've spoken to, there is an element of this preventive detention that is happening over there. So it's quite remarkable that she took this kind of stand. It's an unknown stand because she's basically standing for democratic principles, constitutional rights and democratic principles. So that's another person. I find her life and her work extremely moving, and I don't think enough people know about her. I will now come to your part of the world, the Telangana, and this is the 1946 into 48. It's the Telangana struggle. It's the struggle against the zamindars, and it is large numbers of women are involved in it. One of them I was able to speak to, large numbers of people who fought for their own rights. So fortunately for us, the Sri Shakti Sangatana has brought out this wonderful book, which is called We Were Making History. And it has got the accounts of large numbers of women who participated in their own struggle for their own rights. So that's a group of people. But there were some middle class women also who were in the movement. And one of these people called Koteshwaram, you're all familiar. You will be familiar with her because she's written her memoirs in Telugu, which were translated into English, which is what I read. But the important thing is I went to Visakhapatnam from Hyderabad and I did a long interview with her. Among the best parts of her, now she too was a child widow. Then she was, she went to school. She got teased because her voice, she had a very nice voice and she used to sing, and the boys around her teased her because the schoolmaster said she was like a nightingale, and they teased her so much that she stopped going to school. And you can imagine with the power of men to power even young boys to actually change the lives of women, as it were. Anyway, she grew up to finally be remarried. She was very well loved by her people. And then she went on, as I said, to write her memoirs. Now, her jail, she told me the interview was very interesting because she told it to me in an even, her speech was quite evenly articulated. She's a very poetic writer. But she became completely animated when she described her jail time. And she's describing this is in the pre-independence period, in the colonial period. The bunch of them, there are a whole lot of women who go to jail. And fortunately, they're a big gang. So there are about 30 of them in the jail. And the practice is that you're given rations. And you are supposed to cook for yourself. The women get a message from the men. The men there are a lot of men, they're also in the jail. They're in the men's ward. So the men send the rations, their rations, to their women folk in the women's jail. And they say, cook for us. This is the message, cook for us. They turn around and say, cook for you? The government has given us a holiday. We are not going to cook for you. You can do what you like, So learn how to cook or whatever it is. And then the chaps, and she described it very eloquently. She said, then they are stuck. They don't know what to do. So they are eating the kalla and the manna. Everything is as part of the grain and whatever it is. And it's quite sad. So then finally they concede and they say, you send your rations to us. We'll clean it and send it back to you, but you cook for yourself. Now, I think this is really quite amazing. So sexual division in labor is not going to be tolerated by us. You learn how to do whatever it is. We are doing what we have to do on our side. Then there are many instances, and one of the most moving things is, of course, this whole business of the others coming to speak to you. And Koteshwarama at that time has a child, 4-year-old girl, who can't understand what's happened to her. Her mother is on the other side of the bars, and she's on this side of the bars. So she's trying to touch her mother, wants to be picked up, wants to be held, and so on. And it's a very moving sight. And even the jail staff is very moved by that sight, which is like where you can't touch each other. You can't actually hold each other. You can't. And one of the worst things about a prison regime is that you are cut off from the rest of your kin. And so that's a tragic moment as far as they're concerned. But then they also decide, so that's also stated, but then they also decide, this is before independence, before the 15th of August, 1947, and their cases are not moving. So they decide that they are going on a hunger strike. And 15th August, 1947 can come, we are not going to eat. Now the jail staff is very worried because they feel, what is this? They say there'll be very nice khana and all. They try and offer them these blandishments. And they said, no, our cases are not moving. And so whatever, we won't eat. And so they're on a hunger strike. Finally, the jail staff says, if we announce the cases in the court, then will you eat? So they say, yeah, we'll eat at that time. So then the cases actually move. And the hunger strike is broken and they eat. So they eat on the 15th of August, 1947. But it's also important what kind of rules they want to operate in the new India. So that's again very powerful and moving. And I found this both amusing and as well as very poignant. So that's that. And I want to just end with the last, because I don't have that much time. I was told I had 30 minutes, and I think I've more or less exhausted it. So the last case I want to look at is a friend who used to teach sociology in my college. I discovered by accident that she also went to jail, and she went to jail in 1949. She was a young lefty, and she was from a very cloistered place. The film that was referred to in the statements for me was Ek Inqilab Aur Aaya, is built around this person, Khatija Ansari Gupta. And she was really radical. She was born in a fairly conservative place, but called Firangi Mahal. And she got into, she read the Urdu translation of Kalpana Dutt's memoirs, The Chittagong Armory Raid. And she was so influenced by this that she decided that she's got to be another Kalpana. That she's got to be a younger kind of Kalpana. So she goes off, she's, sticking posters, doing whatever it is, and she gets put, she's only 16 years old. And in 1949, she gets put in jail. She's not even old enough to go to proper prison, because also they're using preventive detention, because there's going to be some kind of big strike and they are rounding up people. So she goes to jail as a 16-year-old. They have to put her in a juvenile detention center. So she's in this juvenile detention center where other compatriots of her are in the regular jail. And now one of the things that struck me about her is that she wrote a few vignettes, short vignettes of people other women who were in the jail. One of them is very poignant because it's about a little girl, a Dalit girl, who came to jail as an 8-year-old with a doll in her hand. And she is, she goes, she's charged with killing the landlord's son. The landlord's son and she were playing together near a pond, and he fell. We don't know if she pushed him, there was some game that was happening and so on, but he drowned and he died. And so she goes to jail as an 8-year-old. And she stayed in jail. And when 1947 happened, everybody was given special relief. There was a special amnesty in 1947. This girl stayed in jail because there was no one to vouch for her. So this Dalit little girl stayed in the jail till her term was over because there was no one to vouch for her. And Khatija mentions this person in her own short memoir that she wrote. So you look at the ways in which the experience of this pre-independence and immediately after independence there is not enough of a transformation that we can see happening in the old anti-colonial regime. So in the end, we are left with this question: what is the kind of country that we will build for ourselves? And now, at the past age of 80, I reflect myself. I even saw the partition riots. So, what kind of country are we building? What kind of equality do we have? What do our people experience in terms of azadi? What does it mean to be independent? Men, women, children, everybody. So it's not only a story about women, it's a story about all sections of our people who to this day, I don't think have got the gains of a really independent state. So there's a lot to be done. And I think we've got to stay with our ideals and with our sense of humanity intact and continue to try and build a really free, independent, humane India. And I'll stop at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Uma, for your very extensive and elaborate and very beautiful analysis of the present diaries of the notable women, Veena Das, Khatija. And this is really a great opportunity for all of us to hear you. And we wish you, we would have come to you, you would have come to us to inspire our young research scholars and the colleagues. Thank you so much, because I'm a fan of your gendering the cast, because more extensively I use your book quotations in my research. Thank you so much. And I invite all the dignitaries to come to the dais. Felicitation will be there and we will find a session, inaugural session. We have another session, panel 1, Sunita Rani, Professor Sunita Rani. She's supposed to come offline, but she preferred online because of some reason, unexpected reason. And Jarina Parveen is there. And Professor Anandi from Madras Institute of Development Studies is going to deliver a lecture on the period, the women in South India, pre-independent era. We'll soon just assemble for the second panel after the tea break. But before that, I request all the guests to come once to the dais for felicitations and vote of thanks, remaining part of the program in our session. Okay, channel.
That's it, really.
It's okay. It's okay. We need to take it.
Thank you very much, Madam Professor Uma Chakravarti, for your very inspiring and thoughtful keynote address, and taking up the war prisoners' memoirs, women prisoners' memoirs during the freedom struggle. Really, you built up a very interesting dimension of the position of status of women and also human rights in the post-independent India. Really, we thank you once again for your kind acceptance and giving this keynote address. Now, the last but one item on the agenda is felicitations to the guests on the dais. I request our Venugopal conduct the program.
Thank you, sir. I request Vice Chancellor Garu and Director Sudha Rani Garu kindly consider to today's chief guest, Srimati Gitanjali. I request one day, Madam, and Mr. Garu kindly join for the presentation. Next, consent to our Honorable MLC, Madam Surabhi Vani. I request Geetanjali Madam kindly join for that. You also join. I request Professor Sudharani Garu and Dr. A.V. Reddy Garu kindly felicitate our Honorable Vice Chancellor. Next, I request Vice Chancellor Garu and Surabhi Vani Madam kindly felicitate to our Registrar Dr. A.V. Reddy. Yeah, it is. Yes, memorable.
Madam,
Next, I request Geetanjali Mandal Madam and Surabhi Vani Madam kindly felicitate our Director. Next, last one, I request all the dignitaries kindly felicitate Madam Srinivas.
All the best.
The last item on the agenda is the formal vote by Sudharani. It's not there.
Good afternoon to you all. It's my pleasant privilege to propose vote of thanks on this completion of the inaugural ceremony, which I'm afraid delayed by a few minutes. Thanks to all of the participants and dignitaries on the dais to put up with us in this delay. At outset, my thanks are due to Professor Sitaram Rao sir, our Vice Chancellor, beloved Vice Chancellor, who highlighted that women in various movements and congratulated all of us in this symposium. And our guest of honor, Srimati Surabhi Vani Garu, I thank you, madam, for taking your time and coming with us to us and giving your valuable message and citing your experiences as an institutional builder and talking about women, though they have equal potentials, many times women is restricted to the homes, and we need to acknowledge the role of women in in all the aspects of life. So thank you, ma'am, for your message. Dr. A.V. Reddy, our registrar, is always encouraging these academic activities and for his financial support also, the university authorities, and as well as constant support to this symposium. And he acknowledged the contributions of women and the life. And he also cited very aptly Swami Vivekananda that women need to be respected. And in his very brief message, thank you, Eventually. Our esteemed chief guest, Srimati Geetanjali Mandral, because I apologized in the beginning too, because we civilians, we hardly follow the protocols and all, but she has kindly put up with me in spite of her very busy schedule, because the entire month of August is a very precious and occupying months for the army, and you all know that, and entire country, nation is celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. So how busy she is, but she took time for us. Very kind of you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation to, to be the chief guest, as well as your valuable message of emphasizing the value of education and appreciating the role of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University in imparting education to the half of the population in this society. And she also talked about emphasized that we need to rewrite the history. This is very essential message, which we definitely will follow. Definitely will document this, the experiences of our learned speakers and those who are present here, those who are presenting online also. We'll bring it out as a book, and we'll put it in our OER repository, Vidyagani. We have started recently OER policy also. We, all the memoirs, memorial lectures, and the talks of the forums have been documented, reposited in the repository of Ambedkar Open University. So thank you so much from the bottom of our heart, Department of History, and from all of us, Ambedkar Open University. We thank you, ma'am, for your presence here. We thank Professor Uma Chakravarti, madam, a historian and filmmaker and a veteran who has seen the developments of the 75 years of women's movement, being a part of it, being leading the movement. And she very aptly brought out the prison diaries of the several women who participated, not only participated in the national movement, but also recorded their experiences, and also brought over the very pertinent aspects of the how the functioning of the prisons, to the equality issues, men and women discrimination in the jails, as well as the attitude of the male fellow colleagues, and starting from Veena Das to several other Kondapalli Koteshwaramma Telangana. She also touched upon the Telangana history on struggle. And from 1930s to the achievement of independence, a beautiful narration of the women's experiences she brought in, inspiring all of us. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us and inspiring our learners online and offline. I thank PRO branch, especially Venugopal Reddy, for a constant support right from the kids and taking care of the arrangements and media and everything. And Computer Center, Vasant and his team for being with us and making accessible all the making this online. This is live streamed to the participants also. And this will be in YouTube channel also. Yeah. Madam Sri Bhivani Devi, madam, I don't know, I find the less words to describe her constant source of inspiration, because we considered madam as our part of our family. That's the reason I just slipped from my mind. Madam is any time, like, you know, her presence itself is a very great source of inspiration for all of us, being out of a great person, Narasimha Rao sir, and not only that, she herself started her career in educationist and institution builder, and several other activities also. And your presence gives us strength, madam, always. Thank you so much. And our computer center, Vasant, Ishwant, and all the team, since yesterday, they have been making the trials and making all efforts. And EMRRC for recording and making it to the public and posting it to the YouTube. Engineering branch for making this dice a beautiful one. Engineering section and caretaker. And graphic unit branch for taking care of the invitations and printing and all the time. Swami artist, because he's I have several proofs and all I used to give. And the sections, the branches of SSB, EMRC, and Director of Material Production, and all the branches, the staff, and the directors and deans of the faculties who made this event a great success, and media staff also for publishing this, and all the supporting staff, my organizing committee, because I'm calling my organizing committee. There are 33 of them, gems of the people and assistant professors, contractuals. They are with us, permanent staff and the other contractual staff also. They are with us throughout the day and night. And all the names are there in the brochure. And my team, the Director Academic and Education, and all the people who supported, I can't take the names because of the paucity of the time, but all the organizing team, thank you so much. Because of you and this function, seminar, symposium could see the light of the day. And thank you one and all the students, scholars, participants here. Thank you so much. Please stay with us till the evening. So we are going to have a wonderful lectures by the eminent speakers. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you, one and all. Yeah, let's break for the tea and snacks. High tea is waiting for us. Just refresh us and we'll come back again. Thank you.